So, Sandman series, was it any good? Did I like it or did I not? I've done a vid on episode 1. This vid is on the rest of the entire series, all the episodes, not discussing each episode one by one, but discussing a little bit more about what I was going on about in the other video, which is translating comics to TV, and a few do's and don'ts which I think did go wrong with this show. I did enjoy it overall, but this could have been so much better. So much better. Gaiman can do it, and all the great creative people and actors behind this show could have delivered something that, well, I'd read it before, I'd seen it before, I'd literally seen everything they did in this before. And not just in the comic, even on the TV show, it was coming across as things I'd seen before. Let's discuss more after my lovely picture of a geekyOlhog. Hola! So, Sandman as a series. The first couple of episodes really they weren't impressing me. And they weren't impressing me because I had literally seen it all before. It was these are literally translations of the comics. Now, on paper, this may have seemed like a good idea, but I've got to say, overall, I've enjoyed the series more than I haven't. And the latter series, where obviously everything is moving along now and is getting towards the end, is going to build up in momentum, which I do believe we need in a TV show. The plodding of the first few episodes were wonderfully imaginative and very true to the source material. But a bit like in the programme, where it says that, you know, like the dreaming needs to, and Sandman needs to adhere to certain rules and principles, otherwise everything falls apart, and the dreaming can't exist in the real world and vice versa, all these things. Well, that got me to thinking, that comic, those issues of comic book wonderment shouldn't exist in the TV world. Now, I don't know how many people have been enjoying the show, to be fair, and Netflix never announced, and I can't see anywhere, not that I've looked too hard, about how big a hit this has been. But I'm pretty sure that anyone who's read the comic, firstly, haven't watched anything new. There's nothing new in it. They haven't taken Sandman and the endless and the dreaming and what he can do and can't do and gone bang, here we go. Neil Gaiman's given us some ideas. We've got some great writers on it, and there's plenty of great writers about, but we've based it on Neil Gaiman's idea and he's been involved. No, they didn't do that. They just give us what was in the comic. So for the comic readers, I mean, are we happy about that? I mean, I haven't reread it since 1989 when it came out. So, but I'm still remembering, and I'm going back to it because I'm thinking, was the comic like this? And yeah, it was. It was a lot like that in 1989. A lot's happened since then. And not only I think that the comic readers who've watched this programme must be thinking, but I've literally seen all this. Did we really want to just see the story we loved from 33 years ago with moving people? Like, is that what it's all about? Are we that? Have we got that lack of imagination that we just need to see, oh, that Sandman was so brilliant, but I'd really like to see Sandman in real life. Now, but doing the same thing as I read, and no, and it was a great character, and Sturridge, that guy, oh my God, what a perfect piece. That's one thing I've also, what a perfect piece of casting with that man. And the moments where he shows a bit of menace and how he has to be to rule his kingdom of the dreaming is all at the end. I wish, apart from one little silhouette shot, I think in the first or one or two episodes, and I think it was the end of the first episode, where you just see his eye. I think I mentioned it. Other than that, you don't really get an idea of what he has to do to run, the weight on his shoulders of running the kingdom. And for a TV show, in a comic, we can meander on for months and months and months. We're left with lovely artwork to look at, and we can go back and reread it. And I know we can rewind the show and etc, etc, but it is not the same, as beautiful looking as it is. And I know it sounds like I'm barking on and moaning about this show, and I'm not really, because it's just that maybe it was wasted opportunity. Maybe it's that, because of and I am banging on about it, the literal translation of the comic page to the screen. I think for me, this is where it's all gone wrong and made it lesser of a project that could have Sandman as a character we know lasted 75 and so well renowned and well remembered. 33 years later, they still want to make a TV show, so it's resonated. But has it resonated because we need to see every issue of that comic as a TV show, as an episode of TV? I can't understand it. I'm not getting it. I'm getting it now why they shouldn't do it. And I did say before, something like the Netflix Daredevil show, completely two different separate genres of entertainment in anyone's, just because they first appeared in comics. I'm not comparing, that fantasy with superheroics, but the approach to it. Yeah, they kept the origin story in, and I'm not saying I didn't want to see any of those stories, those little allegorical elements of it, but I didn't want to see any of it. But what I will say is, a lot of it, there was an episode or two there that came across like an episode of The Twilight Zone that I'd seen 40 years ago. It's just, or tells, there was a programme in England on Sunday, because the whole show has reminded me of a very, very English Sunday afternoon show. I don't know why, it's just got that essence to it. If that's what I was after, then brilliant. But the stories that go nowhere, and I know they brought the characters in, and they're the ones we went through right to the end, but my God, there was a lot of wasted time there. A lot of talking and walking. And I thought Dismal Minus did enough of that. But there was a lot of walking and talking around the library and up bridges and all the rest of it, explaining the dreaming and what might happen if the vortex is in there and all. On the comic page, building the worlds, yeah. I don't know, it just created some really meandering episodes where I was drifting right off into the dreaming. Literally watching it, and I know we can't help going there, can we? So forgive me for that. But anyway, I lost my train of thought now because I went off into the dreaming and a silly joke. But let's get back on track. So Twilight Zone, little episodes with a twist in the end, half hour, oh my God, yeah. Now, he's done that in here, and I know he's weaving it in, and we'll get it in the end, or the end of the next issue, or the issue after that. I still maintain this does there's something about it doesn't work. The serial killer, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't watched it, spoiler alert. So switch off now if you don't want to hear what one of the episodes is about specifically. So the serial convention, serial killers. Now, I thought that was a marvellous episode. In and of itself, and how. But that, for me, that was the randomness of it, of Nightmare, of the Corinthian being invited to this, and Rose being there, and Sandman having to go there, and what he does, and the nice bits of kind of fun that they poke at as if this actual thing. It was very. I did like the tongue-in-cheek aspect of some of the dialogue. That when the boy's going through, Jed, he's walking through and he's listening but he's not quite understanding because he's a child, but we are. It's done. It's all done well. None of this is done badly. And none of the other episodes. One really ridiculous thing I will say. Florida still looked like London. Everyone, I've praised everything, but those Florida outdoor scenes looked like a decorated British beach. I don't know where they filmed it. The Florida house, come on, this wasn't taking me to Florida. I don't know why we had to be in Cape Kennedy. I suppose we had to be in America for that. Oh, I know I drifted off. But could that have been changed? Did we have to shift from 1916 England to the dreaming back here and over there in America? Did we have to do that? Was that essential? Or could, like I've been banging on about, could this have been part of a story that, if you're going to make it very English, let's go full Potter, let's go full Downton Abbey, let's go full everything, Englishness. Fine. So why adhere to Florida? Where? So that didn't work, guys. Sorry. That did not work. But apart from that, that was one of my, while I was thinking about it, was one tiny little nitpick. So the anecdotal, it just works on the page. These little vignettes and anecdotes and this meandering and dialogue describe, talking in this, thou dost not know what will happen in the dreaming if the vortex, and Lucien going, my God, I've got a book of that on shelf number 5. I'll go walk and get it. And I know it isn't going to, and I'm not saying it had to be fast editing, snap, with some rap music over it and some action scenes and, throw a few grenades and why shouldn't the Sandman have some machine guns? No, I am not saying that, because I'll tell you what, I'd watch Sturridge play that character all day long. And all the other actors, and let's get on to the acting side of it as well. Even though I am banging on about the comic bit, just quickly, everyone in Desire, marvellous. Wanted to see more of that character, 100%. It's a shame that these characters weren't seen more. I think with my idea of taking the first volume, the first 10ish, whatever it was, that first story that they've done here, do you know what? I think some decent writers with Gaiman's stewardship could have had a field day. Could have had we would have been in for a treat. We would have been in for a treat here if we could have had, and it would have been new for the comic fans and something different for just normal TV fans that want a bit of fantasy of an evening, try something new. But getting back to, it's all been done before. The other problem with doing this literal translation of what was written and drawn, created in the late 80s, is that it's supposed to be in 2021, but do you know what? We have literally seen it all before. We've seen enough Tim Burton films so that veiled goth women and older blokes that want to do a bit of not burlesque, a drag act, really, it's not. It's almost quaint now. It's almost quaint. Not that it was done to shock, but the weirdness of it is lost now. The weirdness of it is lost because, also on that subject, the weirdness of everything is lost because every relationship has to be mixed race or gay. Every relationship, barring one or two, has to be either one of them. You do not get anything else. I think maybe not that I was keeping track. It's not exactly the most important thing I was looking for. To be fair, from this show. So getting it back on track a little bit more, fundamentally, this could have been better and should never have been a literal translation of these comics. But I do get it. I do understand where all this comes from, and it's all stuff I love. To be fair, it is literary reference. You know, everything that Gaiman has built his very, very successful career on. I understand. I get it. And obviously, Gaiman is far more literary adept than I am. He is far better read than I am in classics and great literature. So all of these things are thrown in. All of this stuff is and our elements all brought together. And obviously, Gaiman. You know, there are things like Elric. There's a character called Elric in fantasy literature, and you can see that there's an element of the Sandman's character taken from Elric of Melniboné. This character, I think it was 6 or 8 books. I jumped onto it with the comics, but the books are by an author called Michael Moorcock, an English kind of sci-fi and fantasy writer way back. I think he started out 60s, and this was in the 70s. This Elric character, pale. It was a fantasy character, pale, and it was always about how melancholy he was, and he had this sword that drunk souls. But he was, you know, he had this, and I can see this in Sandman. So I get where all this comes from. You know, I understand how Gaiman has mixed it in to the comic. All these great artists that did comic book work. Then, like, I love Sam Keith and the work he did afterward, the weird and wonderful stuff, and some of the stuff that Sam Keith, the artist on the Sandman first comics that they've done this TV show of, he did a comic called The Max. That was probably late. That was probably 10, 15 years maybe after. Just a weird and wonderful. Apart from a load of other stuff Sam Keith did on his own, he had this really weird style. Now, if they ever turned round and said, "Oh, great lads, you comic boys and girls are going to love this. We're going to do a TV show at the Max," I'd just go, "No." I think they tried an animated show. Now I'm waffling about that. Maybe when I'm putting this together, and I'll research that and maybe put a little link up if they did do an animated show. Nevertheless, some stuff just doesn't work via from here to there. I'm sure there are books out there, because if there weren't books out there that couldn't be turned into films or TV series, and I know this is the route a lot of studios go down now, is they snap the rights up to stuff straight away. I know that, I get it, but we don't see everything. We don't see every book sold, do we, as a film or TV series? And I know that's a lot of that is because of crossing genres, and we've seen it all before. But it's funny how maybe this would have worked if they didn't bring it right up to date in the modern day. Maybe this would have worked if they kept it in the 80s. Or that late 80 bit. Maybe they would have gotten away with the fact that we have seen a lot of this. We've just seen it rolled out with numerous fantasy films, fantasy TV series, other fantasy comics. The books of Magic was another comic that came out by the Vertigo lot that did Sandman, which I recommend, and I think it was Gaiman that was doing the books of Magic, and he got into a bit of a war with J.K. Rowling back in the day over these, because funnily enough, just before Harry Potter was released, and I'm sure it was Gaiman who done this character in books in this, I think it was an anthology series actually, but there was a character in it, guess what, a young dark haired boy with little round rimmed glasses. Who knew? Then Harry Potter come along, and then there was a war from there. I'm not going to go there. I might do one day, but not here. I'm not going to go there. So there's tons. And I know I'm probably waffling on a bit more, but it was a long, it's a fairly long, it's 10 episodes of series. But before I go, what I will say is it's worth a watch. That is one thing I will say. You've got to plough through. We'll all plough through the first episode as a setup, and it's a fairly decent one. I think it's those 2, 3 and 4 that I think are wasted. I think they're wasted, and I appreciate the effort involved, and they look great. And maybe if you've got a different viewpoint after you've watched this video, you've seen it, then please let me know. Love it. I love getting into it. With different people, with different views. So I will leave it there without waffling on. But essentially, like in the dreaming, we can't cross over to the real world and vice versa. And I think this one should have stayed in the comic. It should have stayed in the graphic novel and not come over into the TV series world. But my caveat being, with old Tom Sturridge as Sandman, we could have had a great TV translation of that character and taken all the elements from it. Perhaps we could have had a white goth death. I realised why they didn't do it, having watched this, and I did a video kind of whinging about my feelings of disappointment. I can kind of see it because I had a couple of goth girls at the end, but and again, Tim Burton has done that forever, and so we have seen that all before, like two goth girls and a couple called Ken and Barbie, and this isn't weird and quirky for me anymore. I don't know why, but I do know why. We've seen it all before. It's just been done. It's been done to death. We've seen the quirk. But if it was set in the 80s, maybe you can forgive them for going, oh well, yeah, all right. In the 80s, I suppose that was, it was a bit quirky. Ken and Barbie and a weird landlord who's also gay and loves doing singing in a drag act, dreaming of Broadway, darling. Yeah. I'm going to leave it at that and bid you adios.